Welcome to the Planning for Life podcast with certified financial planner professional Russell Jacobs and financial life advisor Carl Coolidge. Carl and Russell will share creative strategies and ideas for overcoming challenges in your personal and financial life. Inevitably, life happens, and we will empower you to reach your destination. Thanks for joining us. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to another podcast with Carl Coolidge. Today, we're going to dive much more deeply into some of the things that you have to consider if you are involved in a 401k, as in you are a participant, or if you are the provider of a 401k to your team members and employees. Carl, you've been doing 401k work for a long time. Why don't you just give us a little bit of background on, one, why you got into 401ks, and then two, how long you've been doing this?
Well, we, used to do or were involved quite a bit with health insurance, group health, and employee benefits. And at this point, I've been doing this now 21 years, and I think it was about 11 to 12 years ago, we got tired of the health side of the business, and this was before Obamacare, before a lot of the changes that have occurred today. And we just felt like there were always problems with health insurance. You got calls of either my claim was not paid or my premium's going up. It was never good news.
Yeah.
And so what we decided is let's find a way that we can really have an impact on people, participants, for their long-term future, where they have an opportunity to, save and to be able to retire. So we really explored the 401k business. I, went and got my AIF designation, then my CKP, which are obviously retirement plan specific designations, and attended several different classes associated with it so I could really get up to speed on it. And what we really decided is we were going to have a focus on education, really one-on-one with the participants. And what we realized is most people in our business, meaning advisors, don't want to meet with a lot of the people at companies. They just want to deal with the higher ups, the C-suite, the executive level. And we felt like a lot of the people who weren't in that level weren't getting the information they needed, and they probably, quite frankly, need it the most. And so that was our focus when we moved into the retirement plan space.
And you just touched on a couple of different things that we want to unpack and expand a little bit here. The three things that people seem to be the most concerned about is fees, the funds that are being used, in fiduciary guidance. Now, you just talked about the fiduciary aspect of it. You have advanced designations, which I don't believe many advisors have gone through the advanced training like you have. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what the fiduciary means, because you and I actually did a podcast on that previously. But I definitely want to talk about fees. Carl, I hear all the time that there's like this race to the bottom, that nobody wants to pay any sort of fees, but you get what you pay for. And especially with what you just said, that most 401k providers just want to work with the C-suite people, and you guys come in and you work with, the rank and file, which is who needs the most advice. Shouldn't they have to pay for that?
They should, and you're right. I mean, in every industry and every consumer, wants to pay the lowest fees they can, but of course they want the highest amount of service. And again, as we state, we are certainly in the business to help people. We want to give them good guidance, good education, ways to achieve their goals, but we're also not a nonprofit organization. And so you're absolutely right. You've got to find the balance between how much you're charging a client, a plan sponsor, a business, and what the value they're receiving. And so to me, it's like anything. If you get the value or the perceived value, then you're willing to pay for it. And that's really how we look at it, which is why we focused less on funds and more on education, because funds are really, at this point, commoditized. Mm-hmm. If you look at most of the retirement plans or investments, they're all going to be relatively the same. You'll have a few changes, but everybody has the same filters. They look at all of the same top tier funds. So then it really gets down to the education side of, can we help a participant really make an impact on their future by discussing what their risk tolerance is, what they can really save, how can they make smart choices financially that sets them up for success in the future. So fees are always a big item, and we deal with those and discuss those up front, but we also, I think, get our clients to understand that there is a balance between paying a fee and the value you receive.
Something that people don't think about is the age of the advisor who's servicing the 401k. The average age of a financial advisor in the United States is 56 and a half years old. And you know as well as I do, Carl, when you go to conferences, it's pretty much a sea of old people. When you look at how you guys, Jacobs Coolidge and Company, has built the practice, youth is important. And even though that you've been doing this for 20 some odd years, I mean, you're still a very, very young advisor on the grand scheme of things. Do you think that 401k participants and 401k providers should have that conversation, which would be, what's going to happen to you if something happens to you, if you proverbially, if you get hit by the bus, or when you retire, who's going to take over our account? What do you think about that question?
Yes, I think it's important more for plan sponsor than participants because, again, you're dealing with them at a higher level of running the plan, and then, again, it trickles down to participants. But that is why we really, when we built the practice, focused on a team approach to exactly your example you used to cover. If myself or Russell got hit by a bus, then we have someone else who can step in and still work with our clients, and they have continuity of services. And I do think, yes, the advisors are getting older, and I didn't even know that stat of 56. Fortunately, I'm not there yet. So, but I do think it's important for them to either be bringing someone along who's younger or be part of a team where you have parts that you can change in or out. And obviously you're going to have a point person that you deal with, but if you have more people involved, it really allows you to service that client over a long period of time and also through different generations. And, the other concern that I get into when I see an older advisor involved with a plan, while they obviously have experience and knowledge, sometimes they don't want to stay up to date on the most current things happening in the industry. Again, as you know, when you get older, you tend to get set in your ways. And I think that's also important, is to evolve with the changes that have happened. Obviously, technology is a huge thing that's going on now, and it's really evolved from how you used to educate and enroll participants, and now everything's in a digital world and with apps, etc. And so sometimes it's, again, something to think about. Is an older advisor going to embrace all of the new wave of technology in order to be most efficient when meeting with participants and plan sponsors?
Technology is ultimately either your friend or your foe, and you have taken it on as a friend, and you specialize in 401ks generally in the hospital systems. I know that you do some other ones too, but one of the neat things about the technology that you're talking about that Jacobs Coolidge and Company has entirely embraced means that you could take hospital plans on from pretty much all over the place, right? Because of online enrollment and Skype video calling and, doing education and enrollment. What do you think about that?
Yes, I would say it's certainly gotten much easier to work, with plans, individuals, anyone from a distance, with, as we say, if you have internet, laptop, or tablet and a phone, you can do a lot of business virtually anywhere. And again, it just depends on, what type of health system or what type of plan we're going to work with on what their needs are. So it begins, like anything, with really determining what is important to them, what are they trying to accomplish, because some it's education, some it's fees, some it's, forming their investment committee. It just really depends on what they're trying to accomplish, and then we can customize that. So we generally say we like to find a combination of using newer technology, but technologies, but also having that one-on-one interaction. And again, we can do that from distance via travel or, as you said, with the different technologies, but we really think about it on a case-by-case basis.
When it comes to robo-advisors or plans that are entirely digital with no interface, I know there's a lot of noise out there, Carl. There seems to be a lot of misinformation, disinformation, or lack of information. Or if you dive too deeply, it's way too much information. When somebody asks you about working with a robo-advisor or Carl, I don't really need that because I have an app. What do you say to that?
I think the robo-advisor, in that world can be great for the investment side. It keeps it very simple. They've, gotten pretty savvy with how they deliver that information to participants, especially younger millennials, and they can really get a good allocation through that process. What concerns me about it is they're not getting to know the person through that app and really what they're trying to accomplish, because asset allocation or just investing is one thing, and if that's your sole focus, that's fine. Most of our clients is a much more involved and personal process where we're really wanting to understand what they're trying to accomplish long term and look at their entire picture. With robo-advising, they're simply looking at investments and not necessarily looking across the board at your investments, but more in silos. And so while that's inexpensive, it goes back to the conversation we had earlier, which is what value are you receiving for it? Certainly you're going to pay less money in a robo-advisor environment, but you're not going to get all of the other personal consultation, all of the really getting to understand what your goals, your dreams, et cetera, are, and trying to give you the best plan to make that happen.
Have you found that personal touch has increased plan participation when they know that there's somebody there on the other side of the phone or even in the system itself that they can talk to?
Absolutely. I mean, we track all of our data with our plan so we can really report back to plan sponsors the type of impact that we're having. And without a doubt, you have to have that one-on-one, either via technology or via in person, where that is what to us really makes a difference on taking someone that maybe is not comfortable investing, maybe is much more conservative because they don't understand how this world works. But when you have that interaction with them and really listen to them and help educate them on what their options are, they generally are always going to take advantage of what their plan sponsor offers or their company offers in order to be saving or in order to save money long term. And without a doubt, that to me is huge. And that's why we looked at that model. While it's very labor intensive, we feel like we can really have an impact and make a difference in their lives long term. As corny as that sounds, but that's genuinely how we feel about it.
Mm-hmm. What about retention with the service and people staying in the plan, and not only staying in the plan, but also staying employed? Do you have any data along those lines?
We do. We look at, again, all business owners realize the cost that it takes to hire, train, and keep someone. And so they don't want to put all that time, energy, money, resources into training and getting someone up to speed, and then they leave. So we really feel like the retirement plan can be a very good retention tool. If you structure your plan properly, if you provide those employees with good education opportunities, if you continue to give them data from time to time that resonates with them, that helps an employer really keep and retain those employees. And so they're not having to spend time, energy, and money training new employees on a frequent basis. So absolutely, it's a huge benefit to have a well-run plan. I think there's a lot of hurdles to entry with that because, again, it sounds very good on the surface, and certainly everyone should be saving for retirement, but it's really just not that simple of a conversation. And certainly we work with a lot of business owners, and that's a pretty noticeable added cost for them. So I think it's something that could make sense, but it's going to need to be really discussed and vetted before I think you can implement it. But I've not heard of anything that's close to being implemented in our part of the country.
Well, Carl, thank you very much for walking us through some of the pitfalls and some of the things that either plan participants or plan sponsors really need to take a look at when they're offering 401ks just across the board. Anything you want to say in closing, or anything that I missed that I should have asked you?
Well, I just think, again, if you're going to have a retirement plan, I'm speaking at this point more to employers, is make sure that you do your due diligence, find an advisor who does have a specialty in retirement plans, who is going to disclose all of the various fees, their compensation, what you're paying a provider, et cetera, so you really understand what you're getting. Again, going back to our conversation of value versus cost, make sure you're getting value for what you're going to pay, and then also make sure your participants are going to get the education. I can't see, in my opinion, and I am an employer, where it makes sense to have a plan if you're not going to provide education. Again, that's what you're trying to accomplish, is to set your employees up where they can be successful for retirement. And if you give them a high quality plan with good options from an investment standpoint, also managing those fees, and find a really good advisor who can help you implement that entire process, to me, that's probably the most important thing.
Fantastic. Well, Carl, thank you very much for your thought leadership today.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
If you, after listening to the podcast, think to yourself, I don't even know if I could answer some of the questions that Carl just brought up, especially when it came to education, making sure that you have a good balance between what your provider is providing from an education standpoint and also services and transparency, make sure that you reach out and give Carl and his team a call, which all of that stuff will be in the show notes. And just even if you have some questions, reach out, see what they have to say about what's going on with what you have currently, and see if making a move is the right thing for your business. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, make sure you click that subscribe now button below. And if you do know somebody who really could use this information, just click that share button. It'll be very super easy to share this podcast with your friends and family, fellow business owners, or other people that you know who could really use this information. For everybody at Jacobs Coolidge and Company, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
The content is developed from sources believed to be providing accurate information. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. The opinions expressed and material provided are for general information and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Russell C. Jacobs III, Carl B. Coolidge, James Jacobs, and William Schwartz are registered representatives of and offer securities, investment advisory, and financial planning services through MML Investor Services, LLC, member SIPC, Supervisory Office, Jacksonville, Florida. Jacobs Coolidge and Company, LLC is not a subsidiary or affiliate of MML Investor Services, LLC, or its affiliated companies.